Hi, everybody. So I'm back. Yes, I did go spend some time with God in the bath. And, so when I was, sorry, when I was in there, he started bringing up things, asking questions. He's like, why didn't you ask me to confirm this time that he was your husband? And I was like, and he brought that question to me a while ago, but I was still working with him. And I was like, I don't know. And when I was on the bus, I would have these questions in my head that God would drop. When he had me, God reminded me of the other man that I thought was my spouse. And he said, why did you keep asking me to confirm? So I sat there a minute thinking, and God's like, are you going to answer? And I said, well, Father, there was something that just didn't sit right with me about the other man. Something that I couldn't put my finger on it. So I had to get your confirmation. I had to get your approval that this was who you wanted me to be with. And he said, but why? And so I started to think back. And then he asked me, so what are you to your spouse? And of course, we went through I'm his helper. He goes, yeah, but what else? What, when you first came into contact, what are you to them and what are they to you? I'm like, they're my reflection and I'm theirs. Right. So if you were reflecting them to themselves and bubbling up all of the things that they needed to work on, that they needed to come out of agreement with, what was it about this individual that didn't cause you to ask if he was the one? And I was like, huh. And so I started to think back every time I asked Father to confirm that the other man was the one he had for me. And I remember seeing these letters, which I took to mean that they were abbreviations. And I saw it as ATD. Oh, a touchdown. And he goes, okay, so back to the mirror. And he goes, I've been showing you these letters, these words, every time you asked me for a confirmation, you saw these letters. Do you understand? And I was like, and he goes, every time you asked me to confirm who the husband I had for you was, what did I show you? And I said, you showed me ATD, a touchdown. It's like, if you're the mirror and you're looking in the mirror, is the reflection you're seeing an exact replica of what's in the real? I said, no, it's in revert. And he goes, okay, so if you're seeing a reflection of what I'm telling you, then what is it really? And he goes, and if they're initials, whose initials are they? And I was like, DTA. And he goes, and I showed you that when you asked me. I showed you that word. And I said, yeah. And I said it was a date. And he goes, that's one meaning of it. And he says, but what else? And I was like, oh no. Father had been confirming to me every time I asked who my real husband was. I just wasn't paying attention because in my head, I had not met him yet. So now, when I met him, my soul recognized all of the confirmations that God gave me for the last 4 years. So for 4 years, I thought this other man was the man that he had for me. And every time I asked him to confirm if that was the man, he was confirming this other man. And I was like, I said, so how come you let me believe? And he goes, when you first met this man, you emotionally attached feelings to the idea of this man. And I was like, epiphany, 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 epiphany. Lucifer used the feelings I had attached to this man to make me believe that this was the man. And you let it, because it was allowing me to release a lot of the feelings that I had from my old marriage. And I was just like, I was floored. I was like, what? And so the reason when I met this other man, the man that was the true man of God that he had for me, the reason I didn't question it is because I was not focused on him. I was focused in this other direction. And God says, you won't even see that coming. And I've known this man. I've known the confirmations. I've seen the confirmations throughout my entire 5.5 years of going through this walk on my own with him. But I never put them together. My soul did. I never latched emotional feelings to this man. So Lucifer used my feelings to misguide me, and God allowed it for a time because it was in my benefit. It was helping me let go of a hurt that was done to me, the pain that I went through, all of those things. So that when I recognized that this man was indeed my husband, I would not bring those feelings into getting to know him. So he got to know me, the real me, without, the blocks, without the hiding, without, because I was being me. When I'm interested in someone, I close off. I pull away. I start acting different. Try to present a better personality, a better reflection of who I really am. So basically, an image that doesn't exist. It exists, but it's a polished image. It's not the raw, unfiltered one that you get to know once you become one. And Bold for Christ actually did a video on this where she says, present your true self. Don't put up a front. Don't put up an image that people want to see. And so that's what God used in order for me to be my true self in front of my husband. So he got to see the weird, the crazy, just the playfulness, the child, he saw it all. All the things that I would think are not my best features. He got to see all of that. And after all that was said and done, he still looked at me like, wow, you're a whole lot of woman. And when I finally came to the realization that God had been confirming this man for 5 years, I was like, wow. Because he finally opened my eyes. He finally allowed me to see. But in the beginning of our friendship, in the beginning of us getting to know each other, he was the one chasing me. I was the one running away. And it became an epiphany recently. I'll let you know when I finally realized that I was the one running away. It was on February 23rd, 2025, when I came to the realization that he already knew who I was. He already knew that I was the one. And I hadn't realized that he was the one meant for me. Until that day, I was like, the shock, trust me. I was like, wait, how can I be a child of God and not have known? Like, what? And I looked up and I'm like, God, you turned the tables on me for sure. Like, you turned me topsy-turvy. And in that moment is when I began to shift. And I began to understand. So I already liked him at that point. At this point of this year, at the second month of this year, I already knew that I was in love with him. Like, that was not in question anymore. I knew hook, line, and sinker, this was the man for me. And if it took him, another year to be able to come back and be with me, then I was going to wait. Because this was the man. And I understood this was the man because of the conversations that we had. We liked the same things. And there were things that he lied about not liking. And I was like, something tells me that you do like him, but you don't want to say you like him because you're like, we switched roles. I went into chasing and he went into running because he still had things he had to work through. So at this point, he has already let go of the girlfriend. Like, he let the girlfriend go sometime last year. The day that where was it? It's in this one. Bear with me. Bear with me, peoples. Okay, so it was the day that he had changed the screen on my phone. It was that Thursday, 7/27, is when he saw me come in, and he was surprised. And that was the day he let go of his girlfriend, because he knew that he was not going to be able to be faithful in his heart to her, which is why we had that conversation of, I love my girlfriend, blah, 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 and all that good stuff. And so when he changed that image and he saw the rose, and God has been on me about the rose and about Beauty and the Beast. And so he realized in that moment that she was no longer going to be in his life. Now, that doesn't mean that he was able to cut ties with her completely, because he did slip back into a non-committal relationship, meaning they weren't in a relationship anymore, but they were taking pleasures within each other. And because he would come to work and God would put us both in this what do you call it? He would increase our interest in each other, sexual interest. I stood, hard as it was. It would have been easy to grab one of the apps and swipe until I found someone compatible for a moment of release. But I said, no, God, I'm going to stay the course. I'm not going to, and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. He still had an open door to her. So he fell back into that. But every time he left her, he felt disgusted with himself. So Lucifer was using those feelings to make him feel like he wasn't worthy of what God had for him. And so that's where the tug of war happened between him and I, where he was being pulled towards me, but then he would pull away, and then he'd pull back, and then he'd pull away, and then he'd pull back, and then he'd pull away, and then he'd pull back. So it was this big tug of war, this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I'm like, God, I feel like a tater-totter. Like, what's going on? And so when I was in the bath, God goes, okay, so why didn't you ask me to reconfirm that he was the one? You're going through all of these things with him. And I said, it was the peace that I felt when I was around him, when it was just him and I, and there's no eyes on us. There's no one, poking their head around the corner. It was just him and I having a conversation. And it didn't matter what time of the day it happened. It could be in the morning, it could be in the afternoon, it could be in the evening, it could be at night, it could be at the beginning of the shift, in the middle of the shift, at the end of the shift, throughout the shift. Once we started talking, it was an immediate peace. I can't even describe it. Just like I can't describe what I'm going through right now. I should be freaking out. I should be like, oh my God, I don't have a job. Blah, 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 blah. Sorry, I can be melodramatic. But I didn't feel any of those things. And so I know people ask, like, how do you know? How do you know that this is the man that God has for you? Or how do you know this is the woman that God has for you? It's a level of peace that you can't describe that they give you when you're with them. Regardless of the conversation, like, it doesn't bother you. Just stand there watching them. And it doesn't bother them. Have you ever, like, been watched before? It makes you uncomfortable. Like, something's wrong. Like, you know? And he was unfazed. And when he was watching me, I was unfazed. Because his soul and my soul understood each other. It was almost like two buddies, hanging on each other. It's like, hey, what's up? What you doing? That was our souls. Like, look at these fools. Our souls were talking to each other about us, about the vessels. He's like, dude, look at him over there, acting like he doesn't see her. What's wrong with him? Look at her, acting like, oh, she's over here all nonchalant, being all groovy. She's totally smitten with him, and he's totally smitten with her. Can you believe these two? Like, they don't. That was our souls. And the whole time, we're we're trying not to focus on each other. We're trying not to see each other. We're trying not to. But our souls are over there hanging out, talking smack. And that was the peace. Because our souls were connecting. Our souls were talking, and they were with God. And they're like, God, what is wrong with these two? Like, can you hurry it up so we can be together? Because this is ridiculous. And that's why when we were around each other, it was easy. We didn't have to work. In the flesh, yes, we have to work because we have to go against the evil that's coming up against us. We have to go against Lucifer. We have to go against the spirits that are coming against us. But in the spirit, everything's easy. Everything it flows. And so as I was sitting in the bath, and I'm having these epiphanies, I'm having these aha moments, and he's bringing back different words from different prophets, different people that God has speaking and helping me understand where I'm at. And so God keeps reminding me, 328, be gentle, but be ready to move. I've already packed up parts of my things. As I'm trying to figure out like how I'm going to put things together, how I'm going to make things fit, God is reminding me, it's like, you have these boxes, you have these bags, you're going to use that to help protect your cutlery, help protect your plates, help protect the items that you're going to take with you. And I was thinking, I was like, why don't I just leave these behind? Like, I don't need them. And and he goes, try saying that to your husband, that you're going to leave behind the things that you used to make him food. And I was like, oh, I didn't think about that. And he goes, yeah, the plates that you used to serve him food on, he's not going to want to give him those away. He's going to want to keep those because he's going to want you to use those plates to serve him. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. Go lay down. Go lay down. Go on. Good boy. And so I was like, huh? So I don't have a stove in this room, okay? The owner of the property removed the stoves, removed certain things that people were stealing. And so I have a refrigerator and I have a microwave, but I don't have a stove. So if you remember, in a video I did while I was living in my truck, God had me purchase a camping stove. Now I thought he was going to have me make food on the camping stove, but he didn't. He ended up having me do all these other things instead. I would go out to eat. Staying at Motel 6, I would eat there. I would bring home like food from work and stuff, but I wouldn't use the stove. And I was like, why did I buy it? That's like a waste of money. It was to make my husband food. Because if I didn't have a stove, I wouldn't have been able to make that food. Hindsight 2020. And so I'm tickled that God is bringing all these things into my focus and saying, this is why I had you do this. This is why I had you do that. This is the reason that you're doing this or that. And so I'm like, so when he comes to get me, he's going to be like, you don't have a stove. How did you make all that food? And I'm going to tell him, well, it's because I have a camping stove and I made all the food. And he goes, God was like, yeah, that's exactly what he's going to say. He's going to be like, wait, what? All that food you made me, the Philly cheesesteak sandwiches, the black bean soup, the chicken noodle soup, the chicken, what was it called? The chilaquiles, the tacos, the chicken tacos, the shredded chicken tacos that your grandma made when you were a little girl with the cottage cheese. All of that food you brought into work, all of it was made on this camping stove? And we're like, yeah. And God goes, oh, and you know what he's going to say next. And he goes, I can't wait to see what you make on that grand stove I have at home for you to for us to eat from. And I'll be like, okay, because he's a home chef. He likes to cook too, and so we've gotten the chance to work together and cook together. And God has shown me that He has imagined what it would be like working side by side at home together. And I'm like, really? He has? And God's like, have you imagined it? I'm like, yes, but I'm a woman. I'm supposed to, aren't I? And he goes, what, so my sons aren't going to have dreams and wishes that they want for their wives and their lives together? And I said, I guess it's because I've never had that. I've never had anyone like think of me that way, like have dreams about me, like what they want my life with them to be like. I've never had that before, so it's always been one-sided. So this is different than what I'm used to. And he goes, I know, but I want it to be something that you're used to going forward. I don't want you to not be used to the new. And so, cheers. Yes, I only have a little bit of wine left from last night because I swear we partied it last night. And God reminded me. He goes, when you were in California and you were about to move here, where did I send you? You sent me to go out dancing. You sent me to go out drinking. You sent me to go out celebrate. And then you didn't get, remember David? He went out and he danced like a crazy madman. Everybody looked at him like, what is wrong with him? And he became king. So here I am, and in every pivotal moment I've ever had in the last 5 years, God has sent me somewhere to go dance. But this time, I asked him not to. Well, I asked him not to, but remember, I'm not the one leading me anymore. Or God's not the one leading me anymore. Now it's my husband. So the last time I went out, he got upset because I was out by myself at night. I did not get home until 1:30. It was late. I had been drinking, but I was not drunk. But God made it appear like I was because he told me, don't put on your glasses. Just go ahead and text. Well, I can't see without my glasses. So I misspelled like half the words. And in the morning, when I said good morning to my husband, I heard him say, yeah, good morning, drunk. And I was like, so I had my glasses on and I said, I was not drunk last night. I just didn't want to wear my glasses. So I misspelled the words that I was sending you because I couldn't see. And I had sent. And then he's like, oh. So on Monday when he came in, he was not mad at me. He talked to me and we had a conversation. But we never talk about what we text each other. What I text him about. I don't talk to him, but he responds to me in person. That's how I know he's reading my text. That's how I know that even though we're not supposed to be talking, even though we're not supposed to be, because, at that point I'm now in trouble and I'm supposed to be staying away from him, he will come up to me and he will respond about things covertly, So God had me write him a letter. No, let me back up. 2 years ago, God had me write a set of vows. And in that moment, the vows weren't specific to that man, but they were with the intention for that man. But they were very vague. They weren't specific enough. So God had me, after he showed me that this is the man I have for you. I want you to now write those vows. That sentiment that was in the letter in your vows. I want you to make it specific to your husband. Not to the man, to your husband. And I was like, okay. So I wrote my vows more specifically geared towards my husband. And then today, so it happened very oddly. God had me clean. I showed you the dresser where my purse and some other things are. But God had me focus on the zipper on my purse. And so I opened it. And then he goes, oh, what's in that zipper? Well, that's the zipper where I keep my my passport and my vows that I wrote in a folded piece of paper. And he had me put them in plastic. He said, I don't want them to get ruined. If water happens to fall on your purse might get ruined, but your passport and your letter will be safe. And he had me do that almost as soon as I wrote the letter, the vows, 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And no, 3 years ago, because I wrote them in 2022. I didn't write them in 2023. So he had me rewrite them. And then today, he said, he had me listen to this prophet that I just came across her and like 2 days ago. And now all of a sudden she's giving me words and I'm like, whoa. this is for me, this is for me, this is for me. Because God has already talked to me about the word she's giving. And this is just confirmation. And she's talking a lot about Beauty and the Beast and the rose. And she goes, I don't understand why God keeps bringing the rose, the rose, the rose. The rose is my confirmation. I said, it's on my shoulder. And the rose to me is a lot more significant than just a flower. And her flower of choice is rose, pink. Now, I'm going to show you the luggage that God had me purchase. I hadn't paid attention to that color before. Suddenly, God goes, isn't that a rose color? Like pink, a pinkish rose? I'm like, yes. And he goes, interesting. I'm like, okay. Ugh. All right. So, he's been having me take a bath. And it's in representation of... So this week has been about cleansing and about preparing myself for the new. And so there have been many scriptures where, for example, Jesus washes the feet of his disciples to prepare them for the journey ahead. And that scripture stays with me as well. So in the last week, okay, God has been, sometimes I'm taking baths 3 and 4 times in a day, okay, in this last week. Like, I'm like, why am I taking so many baths? I love baths, but I mean, this is like overkill. And so God was putting it in me that as I'm now entering into my new, I need to wash the world out of me. And I actually cleaned my dog today. Because again, when he and I walk into the new... Oh, yeah. Okay. When we walk into the new, we are not going to look like the way we did in the past. Okay? I can't explain how that's going to happen. I know from looking at myself, I haven't seen this face since I was 19. Oh my goodness. I'm like, how do I look